third topic.
Third topic. So our third topic is something that I think is actually very interesting because I'm very interested in economics, and that is that Russia has put forth a gold for food
Interesting.
pricing.
Yeah.
So more or less, it's a global payment system for
Mhm.
food security that includes a
Mhm.
special payment unit backed by gold. Now, like gold, where you can actually take your unit of digital currency and go trade it in for gold if that is something that you want to do, because it's
Interesting.
hard to say, oh, here I have 1 ounce of gold, it's worth 1 ounce of whatever it is, because the price of gold is volatile,
Uh-huh.
and there's it's a more complicated situation than just being able to take gold and hand it to somebody for X barrels of whatever, right? So it's a digital currency
Mhm.
basically,
Mhm.
but it's backed, and using that system instead of the dollar trust. So using basically gold, this gold backed currency,
Uh-huh.
to trade for food specifically. So we're looking at grain, wheat specifically,
Okay.
because Russia provides a massive amount of wheat
Wheat.
for
That's
the
right.
world. And that's actually been one of the biggest issues with the sanctions. And it was from the beginning. People talked about the fact that a massive amount of fertilizer comes out of Russia that now is sanctioned, right? And has been for a while.
Yes.
And a massive amount of wheat, which is a staple for most
Countries.
countries.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's exactly what just happened with this grain deal that's the said the Russia didn't
Right.
agree to. Yeah, but they're not saying the
Yeah.
West didn't say the truth. The other part of the argument why Russia is not agreeing,
Yeah.
it's because we, when I say we, I'm referring to the collective West.
Yeah.
We said, because here's the thing, just a background briefly here for you to know the
Yeah.
whole grain deal, how it happened. Back in July 2022, a deal was reached between Ukraine, Russia, with the mediation of Turkey and the UN,
Right.
that Russia will allow a corridor in the Black Sea for where the grain is gonna transfer to the rest of the world
Yeah.
market. Everything was working
Markup.
fine till about a month ago,
Yeah.
when we said, oh no, we're only going to allow Ukraine a grain to go, but not Russia.
Right.
Russia said, hell no, ain't
Right.
going to work. And rightly so. So they shut the door on that,
Yeah.
because insurance companies that have to insure that said, no, 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 Russia has sanctions. We can't.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. You agreed to the deal, which been working since July 22nd.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you change horses in the middle of the race.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. So Russia said, no, we're not doing it. It's
Absolutely.
because Russia controls they have their
The
fleet
black.
on the
Yeah.
Black
Yeah.
Sea, and there is no other way. So basically, what the collective West wanted to do is to block fertilizer and grain.
Which is terrible.
Yeah,
In case anyone was wondering, I think that specifically is immoral.
yeah. And now what Russia end up doing is saying to Africa, because Africa, we need more.
Hugely.
They're willing to give grain for free
Mhm.
to Africa,
Yeah.
in addition to forgiving their $20 billion debt.
Yeah.
So I am sure this is not for the gesture of a goodness of Putin,
No.
President Putin. There is a strategic calculation to that.
Hugely.
Let's just say straightforward,
Yeah.
because it's the reality. In international relations, in geopolitics, there is no such thing as the goodness of your heart.
Right.
You do it as the goodness of your national interest.
Absolutely.
Straightforward. So, but it sends also the message to the rest of the world that, hey,
Yeah.
the West, you want to play hardball? We'll play hardball too.
Yeah.
The Russians say, because just between China, Africa, and certain other countries, it's a big enough market.
Absolutely.
And Russia produces so much
Yeah.
that they're willing to give it for free,
Yeah.
because it's going to win them favor.
Absolutely.
Long-term strategic thinking. That's usually what it is.
Absolutely.
So we the one who brokered, we the one who violated the deal, the
Right.
agreement.
Right.
So that's the reality of it.
It's the reality of it. And I think the big issue with it is that, and you said this, I don't know, maybe a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
that the reality is that this conflict, US pushing this conflict with Russia, pushed it over the edge. Like, it pushed it too far. The sanctions went too far. You know, it provided the BRICS countries and the countries that are trying to join BRICS, it provided them the opportunity to really change the global financial situation,
Yeah.
the system,
The
right?
system itself. Yeah.
And even though, you know, the dollar absolutely is still king in terms of global trade, absolutely, but we're looking at a change that is going to happen over a few years.
Yeah.
It's not instant, it's not this month, it's not this week,
No, no, no.
but this is going to happen over years.
Yeah.
But the problem with, and so we're seeing the US fight back, right? So we're watching central bank digital currency, what we were watching, a lot of things sort of try and happen for the United States to actually keep that dollar dominance or currency dominance, because it might not always be a dollar, right?
Yeah.
But the currency dominance, because the country that has the currency dominance is the one that is basically the top, right? It's the hegemon.
Yeah.
But what's happening is we are shifting into a multipolar world, and one of these things, you know, we've been talking about gold because one thing that I think most people don't know is that all fiat currencies fail. All of them have failed throughout history. The problem with all fiat currencies failing is that the US dollar is a fiat currency, and most other currencies are also fiat currencies. It's not just the US. Most currencies are fiat, so that means they're not tied to anything tangible. They're not tied to gold, for example. And so one of the things that's interesting is the BRICS currency, and now we're looking at Russia tying a currency back to gold, because that is the only type of currency that is actually viable long term.
That's true.
So one interesting thing with this proposition is that they're sort of risking against G7 manipulation of the gold market, because that's also very possible, right? So you tie a currency to gold, and the power brokers basically mess with gold prices, because gold prices are in dollars typically, right?
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, in this case, what they're planning on doing is having it determine like a price average over, let's say, a year, but a predetermined amount of time. And so we're using that as the price average, for example, a rolling year, and that reduces the volatility of the, basically, because the price of gold will be averaged over that year, making it way harder to manipulate that, because the US and the other G7 countries, they're not going to like that. They're not going to like gold for food, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's what the CEO of Noble Gold, remember when we had him here?
Colin Plume,
and Colin mentioned in the big picture, the geopolitical aspect, and he was spot on with the idea of why investing in gold makes more sense.
Right.
Even I read a press release from Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs is saying, yeah, you better start to think about investing in gold.
Right.
Coming out of Goldman Sachs, that's kind of
look at the inflation that we're looking at happen all over the Western world, the United States, all over Europe. I mean, inflation is
bad,
very bad.
Before I forget, you mentioned about the digital currency.
Yeah,
maybe we need to do a topic about what the central bank digital currency is planning on doing with the government. You will be surprised about the idea of they will provide you with a $2,000 stipend in return for being chipped.
It's not worth it, guys.
Yeah.
$2,000. It's not worth it.
I think we need to talk about that one at some point. So because people needs to know, because that's what this channel is all about. Is the idea of informing. Of course, they'll make their own decisions. And,
of course.
But it's a very, very, very concerning.
It's very concerning.
I had to read up on some stuff.
Yeah.
I used to work in Washington, so you had access to certain things before. It's kind of, to me, it wasn't no surprise there, but I can only imagine for an average Joe, average Jane, if you get chipped, oh my gosh, what's next?
Well,
so that's where the concern is.
I think you're right. I think, we talk about bigger geopolitical picture stuff, but some of the little things that are happening are actually very concerning and very scary. And it's when you look at things from a macro level,
Yeah.
from the top down, it's, you can see the bigger trends, but the little things that are happening at change happens one step at a time.
Yeah, sure.
And I remember I was reading a quote from a Holocaust victim that basically said, you know, we were asked why we didn't leave, why we didn't do more during that time, during German occupation.
Yeah.
And what, and I'm phrasing it a particular way because YouTube censors us if we phrase it a different way. But this person was talking about the fact that, you know, it was one thing at a time. You know, first they had us do this, then they had us do this, then they had us do this. And he said by the time they had us wear the star, we realized that we were really in trouble. And so it doesn't all happen at once.
Yeah.
It happens one step at a time. And right now we're watching it happen in real time. And you guys, we all have a choice. We all have a choice for the kind of world that we want.
Yeah, maybe we need to do.
I think you're right.
We'll figure something out and at least provide because there are certain things will be censored if we.
Well, maybe it's something we do on Rumble.
We could around Rumble you can talk, so we can do that. So
well, guys, we also have a Rumble. I want to share that with you guys. We also have a Rumble, and you know, maybe that's where we'll do that topic.
Yeah,
let's see if I can find it.
It's worth educating or informing our viewers, because that's, to me, that's our responsibility towards our viewers. It's because they are giving us their time.
Absolutely. So, and you know what, on Rumble, maybe I'll talk about some of the bigger issues that I have with China, for example, because I know you may or may not share them, but
if I disagree with you, I'll tell you to your face. I'll tell you to your face. That's how I operate. So